Welcome to another Gathering Academy. If you are joining us via the podcast, go ahead and listen. But if you would like to see some of the video that we are sharing, it will be on YouTube. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you today. We talk a lot about thinning of the veil, that help from the other side. And most of the time that help comes in just little thoughts, little impressions. Really, the majority of the time, for most of us, it is sometimes it's just imperceptible until we look back and realize, oh, I had this thought and then this thought. But I just want to share a little bit of an experience that I had last week. I have had a couple of dreams in my lifetime that were very significant family history dreams. I don't get dreams a lot, and I think it's important to remember that we can have dreams, but most often it's in the imperceptible whisperings of the spirit, very quiet. But I think there are times when there might be an urgency for us to act, and so we may get the inspiration in the form of a dream or some other really strong impression or feeling. So a week ago, Thursday, in the early morning, right before I woke up, I had a dream, and I've noticed that that's generally when I will get revelation or inspiration, whether it's regarding, excuse me, a talk, or if I've had a dream that I need to remember. Not always, but sometimes. So I just had a very significant dream that when I woke up, I knew I needed to act. And the one phrase that I can share from this very sacred, special dream was, Colette, you need to help Grandpa. And it was my Grandpa Anderson. And I knew from the dream and the people that I saw, the only one I really recognized was my grandpa, but I had the impression that there was somebody, maybe a sister of his, and some other women that needed help. And I woke up and I had a lot on my plate, and I just said a prayer. I said, Heavenly Father, help me to know what to do and how to do it. I don't have time right now, but I will not forget. And then I said, Grandpa, not that I'm praying to Grandpa, but I'm just said out loud, Grandpa, I will not forget. So I went about my doing my work, and partway through the morning, I just had this impression to open up my app on my phone, and I pulled up my grandpa. So I'm going to walk you through the discovery process of what happened, how I acted, and some of the thoughts that came to my mind, just to give you an idea of what do you do after you have this impression or thought that you need to go find or help somebody. Sometimes it's just, you think, I need to go on this line, and it's not as dramatic as an actual plea for help, like Colette, help Grandpa. So let me share my screen. And it might be a little bit clunky because we're going to go through this very organically. So I'm going to go to my grandpa. So here's my grandpa, and he had Parkinson's in his old age. And that's kind of how I saw him in this dream. He was in his older age. And so I thought, well, I'm going to come to him. And then as soon as I came to him on my phone, immediately when I thought of this other woman in the dream, but I couldn't tell who it was. I just had this feeling that it was a sister. I thought Hazel. And so I went to Hazel, and then I thought Phyllis. She had a daughter, Phyllis. And I haven't heard from Phyllis in a while. I reached out to Phyllis years ago. And we started communicating, and she would send me Christmas cards, and I didn't get a Christmas card last year. And so I thought, but my life we were in Poland, as you know. And so I didn't think too much of it. So I clicked on Hazel, and when I went to her daughter Phyllis was there. And when I click on this, you're actually going to see a little more information because I've added what I found, but I'm going to walk you through it. So I went to Hazel, and she had her daughter Phyllis. So I'm going to try and maybe you can see that down at the bottom. There's a picture in there now. There was not a picture. And all I had was a birth date and that she was living. She was born in 1938. So what I did, before I show you the rest of what I discovered, I went here on the side on search records, and I thought, let me go see in Ancestry if Phyllis is still alive. Actually, I think I'm gonna have to go to her page because I have to click on her. So you'll get a little bit of a hint here, but here's Phyllis, and you're seeing a little bit ahead of the game, but originally there was no green here, and I'll show you what happened. So here was Phyllis, no death date. And as you can see, look at this date, 27 August 2025. She passed away last year. And I'll tell you a little bit about her mom. Her mom, Hazel, married Bob. And I knew Uncle Bob and Aunt Hazel when I was a little girl. And they were so nice and would come to visit my grandpa and his wife. So I knew about them, and I knew Hazel was somewhat active in the church, but I didn't really know how much. And when I clicked on her, I actually could hover over. Whenever you hover over these, it'll show you when the work was done. So her work was actually done 3 years after she died in Boise. I'm not sure who did it, but her baptism was done in 1932. So if you notice, she wasn't baptized actually until she was 19 years old. And then the initiatory was done. It just says completed. And then she was sealed to her parents. So it says she was sealed to her parents in 1916. So then I remembered her parents actually went back. They got married in 1913, and they went back after my great-grandpa had joined the church. So do you see how I'm starting to gather some of these little pieces together to try and understand the story of Phyllis? So Hazel was baptized at 19. Her sealing was done. Let's see, actually, when was her sealing done? Sealing to spouse. We looked at that, I think. 96. So it was post her life, post Rob, but they both died in the same year. Bob, let's see when he was baptized. In 92. So after he passed away. Oh, actually, that's fascinating. I didn't even know that. He was baptized a year before he died. So she was baptized, he was baptized, and she was still alive. I would love to know that story. That's fascinating. So we have some parents that she was baptized, but had not gone to the temple. So there's Phyllis, and she was just by herself. So pretend this isn't here about Theodore, because I want to walk you through what happened. So I'm on Phyllis, and I went to Ancestry. So this is on my phone. I'd opened to my grandpa. I have this thought about the sister. I go to Phyllis, says she's alive. I click on Ancestry, search records on my phone, and up comes, let me see if I can find it. There should be a death somewhere in here. I told you we're doing this organically. So it popped up on my phone. Let's see. She was actually, so she's a coal packy when she died. So that's going to impact the results. So this is another guest teaching opportunity for you. If you search with the maiden name, you may need to change it over here, even though it only lists this spouse, the first spouse, that actually he wasn't even in there before. And that's another little spoiler alert. So let's change it to Kolpaki, because that's the name that she's had for the last 50 years. And watch how it changes our results. So now look what I got. This was one of the first things that popped up, was this find a grave. And it said 27 August 2025. So all of a sudden it was making sense why I did not receive a Christmas card from her. So just remember, what find a grave is a secondary source. It's compiled by other people. It wasn't created at the time of the event. So you do want to find a death certificate or Social Security death index, something to prove it. But I can go here, I could click on this, and let me go back for a minute. When you click, I just want a reminder, if you're a family history consultant and you're teaching someone, teach that when you click on this link right here, it actually opens up a whole set of suggested records over here on the right-hand side. So when I look through these ones here on the side, I actually see there's an obituary. There's actually a different name that could be her. It says Kufelt. And then there's another California Marriage Index. So these are all really intriguing. So I've got a death date. If I click on this find a grave, it takes me here and it tells me she was buried in Michigan. And then there's an obituary. This is fabulous. So I can see that she's survived by her husband of nearly 50 years, Lenny or Leonard. So I got that information, but I was just like, I wonder if there's any kids, because Phyllis was born in the 110 year period. And I felt so strongly that I needed to do something. And I feel like I need to do all I can to request her work. But in order to do that, I need to reach out to the closest living relatives. So let me take you back to her and I will walk you through this. I didn't have this at first until I added the death date. Once I added the death date, these all turned green. So what I'm curious about, was Phyllis ever baptized? Because here it's not saying that she was baptized, and maybe she wasn't. There could have been a lot of reasons. If her dad wasn't baptized, but her mom was, those stories that happen. So if I want to request permission, once I have reached out to her husband or her daughter and gotten permission, it can be verbal or it can be written. Then I click, and I need to have a phone number and an email address. I can click request permission. And once I've gone through this, looked at this, and I can say, I have permission. I don't have it yet, but I'll walk you through this. I click, I have permission. And then it said, you has received this form because you are not his or her spouse. So that's one person you can ask. A parent, her parents are deceased. A child. I didn't know that she had a child until I started doing some discovering, and I'll show you that in a minute. Or a sibling. And she was the only child, as far as I know. There's nothing else I can find for a sibling. So it says, to do these ordinances, you must share the following information below. Is the spouse of Phyllis alive? And if you say yes, then you put the first and last name and email address and phone number. And then you get the permission from the spouse. If this spouse is deceased, then you would go, it would be a child. If you say no, watch this. So then I'll show you in a second. What type of permission do you get from the spouse? You can say written or verbal, or if you didn't get permission. If you didn't get permission, it's not going to be accepted. And then you put your contact information, your phone number, and your mailing address. And then you check this box and say, I understand FamilySearch reserves the right to contact the person giving the permission if necessary. So let's go back up. If they're not alive, watch how it changes. Which relative of Phyllis Marie Rasmussen gave you permission? So then parent would not apply for her because they're deceased. Child would have to be the only one. So if I clicked on child, I would do the same thing. First name, email address, phone number, mailing address, and then I tell what kind of permission I received, put my information, and do the same thing. So that's how you request. And if you don't have any of those contact information, then you're kind of lost to be able to do the work, or up in the air. Is that what you'd say? So let's close out of this, and I'm going to walk you through how do you find out the person to reach out to them. And I've done this once before. I have another cousin in this family, and he grew up with his mom was active in the church, was not endowed, and because they all grew up in Nebraska, and they weren't near the church. And my great grandma had a very strong testimony. Her husband joined the church more for her, and they didn't live near an LDS church. So she tried to teach them as best they could, but you can see how they probably didn't grow up with really strong roots. So I think my grandpa was the one that was the most active in that family. And so I was like, okay, from this obituary, if we go back to the find a grave right here, I can see that she had a husband, Leonard Kopacki. And I thought, well, how do I get a hold of him? They're probably not living in the home where the phone number that I had before. In fact, I think I tried calling that number and it was disconnected. So my thought was maybe he is in an assisted living. So my next step, once I had this, I thought maybe there's an online obituary that might give a little bit more information. So I just typed in and you want to put this in quotes, Phyllis. Oops, I didn't spell it. Phy. Phyllis Kopacki. And let's just see if anything comes up. So the first thing, I did a very simple search. You may need to add a year or a place, but first thing came up was this Michigan Memorial Funeral Home. You can also see legacy obituary, also had it, and this is for the United States. You may have something similar in a different country that you might be living in. And then this one, look, there's that picture. And so there she is. This kind of looks like this is her. This looks very familiar to me, but I don't think this is her. I think this might be her mom or relatives because I've seen this picture before. So it's more discovery for me to do. So I clicked on the first one, and here is an obituary, this cute little picture of Phyllis. I never met her in person, and it tells me the day that they had the visitation and then the day of the services. So from that, I can get a burial date because they would have buried her the same day, especially if the funeral was at 10 a.m. In the United States. That's how we do it. And when I started going through this one, it says she was a beloved mother to Chris. I didn't have Chris, or I didn't think that I did. But I have a last name, and she's also a grandmother. So I scrolled down, and then she has all these friends. And so when I scrolled down here, I saw that there were some friends that had given their condolences. So what I did is I copied the one that had the most unique name, and I went into Facebook. I put her name in Facebook, and then I was able to send a message. And she actually reached back out to me within minutes, actually. And I think she thought that I had reached out a long time ago. And she was so kind. And I just said, I would love to get a hold of Leonard or Lenny. And so she messaged back and said the last she knew, he was pretty ill. And so one way, and she said she would get back to me. I haven't heard back yet. But one way I can find out if he's alive is I can go back to Ancestry, and I can go to search, and I can search all collections. And I can come in and go Leonard Kolpacki. And I know he lived in Michigan. I don't know his birth date, so I'll just search with that, and we'll say search. And now, if he passed away just in the last few weeks, I wouldn't necessarily know that because Social Security Death Index takes longer to register. So here's a Leonard Kolpacki. He was born in 1908. That would be a little old to be married to Phyllis. So that may be his dad. So I'm going to scroll down. Here's a World War II, same date. Then I look down here. There's a Leonard Raymond Kolpacki, and died in 98. So that's not my guy. That's probably his dad. So then here's a Leonard Kolpacki in 1950. So let's click on that and just see. It'll give us a date. And that one's 1909. Let's see if there's a son named Leonard in here. So when I scroll down, and there is a Leonard Kolpacki. He's 2. So he was born in 1948. Phyllis was born in 1938. So I would need to do a little bit more digging, which I did, to verify that this is her husband. And she was older than him. And if I went back to the obituary right here, it says she's survived by her devoted husband of nearly 50 years. So that gives me an about date of when they got married. So they got married in the 1970s. So before I started this, I thought that there was only one spouse. And so my goal is to get a hold of Leonard. I'm still working on that. And I'm going to give a phone call and see. And I will do all of my part, in my power. But at least if I get a no, Phyllis is one step closer to having her work done. And when he passes away, then I could reach out to the daughter, Chris. So we just have to respect what the family's wishes are. I have my cousin that I reached out to in Alabama, or Arkansas. He was so happy that I reached out. He said, my parents loved each other, adored each other. And yes, I would love for them to be sealed. And he loved that thought. So, let's go back. So what is my other option? So I've got Leonard Kolpacki. I can see if there's a phone and address directories. I can click on that. And I can see there's some addresses from a long time ago, but they were still in Michigan. So another thing that I do is I can go here into a search and I type in Leonard Kolpacki plus Michigan. And the first things I get are those and the obituaries. But then there's some public records that I might be able to find. Fast People Search may have phone numbers. Intellius. There's several different ways. Spokio, if we do plus Spokio. This is another way to find living people's phone numbers. Sometimes they're valid and sometimes they're not. So we come in here, here's Spokio, and says he's 78, which then matches, is that pretty close? Yeah, that matches up with the 1948 from the 1950 census. And if I click on it, it may not give me all of the information. It'll say see results, and you have to certify that you're over 18. And you have the ability to see results, and it'll probably want you to pay, log in. But sometimes you can get clues here because these are some other people that are saying are related to him. It could be him, it could be a brother, it could be a child, but we're getting a few pieces of information. It says he's been in Flat Rock, he's been in Dearborn. So all of these things are ways that I can try and search and see if I can locate him. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea. Let me go back here of how to do that, searching for a living person to get a hold of them. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to Phyllis because I want to show you what else I discovered. So let's see if we can get back here. We're still on one more. Here we are. So we get these. So then what you want to do, once you've come in here, you've added the new information, you want to look at every hint that's here. And then you will, if it matches, you'll add it as a source in FamilySearch. So for instance, here's the California U.S. Marriage Index. When I clicked on this, it was Phyllis Rasmussen, born about 1939, and we know ours was in 38, married in San Diego to a Frederick W. Kufelt. Did not know anything about this Frederick. So this could be mine. It may not be. So I need to do a little bit more digging to see if I can find out if that's really hers. Then I come here. Here's a U.S. city directory. City directories are a great place to verify relationships and as well as people. So I'm going to click on that. And I see that she's living in San Diego. And in there it says Phyllis Kufelt. So it's another one to kind of keep in my mind. I'm not going to add as a source until I've proven it. And then here's an obituary. Let's click on that. And we're going to view it. Hopefully it'll view it. If you don't have a newspapers.com, which I do, and I'm signed in, you won't be able to see it. So this actually was a death notice or an obituary for, if we go down to the bottom, you can see right here, this is my Uncle Bob. So Robert A. Rasmussen, 80, of Boise, died Sunday, July 11th, 1993. Natural causes. So then I go back up here, and here we go. Now it's highlighted up here, and I can snip it or clip it for personal use. Just remember, we don't add those to FamilySearch because of copyright restriction, but you can clip it right here and save it for your personal information. But when I come in here, I learned that he was married to Hazel, my great aunt, in Grand Island, Nebraska, and they moved to Maywood, California. Now, this is a little key piece of information. This Maywood helped me when I went back to Phyllis and I was looking for more records. I actually found out that she was married the first time to a Rafdal. His last name is Rafdal. Well, when I did a search for the daughter Chris, I ended up finding out that she was listed in an announcement for a class of 1976 celebration or class reunion. And she was listed as Chris Rafdal McLaughlin. Well, in the first obituary, she was Chris McLaughlin. So all of a sudden I'm getting a clue about this Rafdal. And I ended up finding two spouses. She was married for a short time to two different men that were both sailors in San Diego. And then they must have divorced. I have not found an actual record in the newspapers, which is often a place you can find them. But I was able to look in here, and I can see it's Phyllis and Lenny Kolpacki in 1993 in Dearborn, Michigan. Do you see how that matches with that other information we found? And then a granddaughter, Chris Rafdal. So when you see another different name than the current name of the parent, then that generally indicates another relationship, a marriage, or just a relationship. And then it gave more information about siblings. So I used this information. So I added those two spouses. to her. And then as the more information I added and I went back into Ancestry, I was able to find more information about them. And with the new temple policy that happened about a year and a half ago, we can only do the temple work for those that are directly related. And sometimes they'll have people say, well, I'm not related, so I'm not going to worry about them. And I think you heard me last week. I have counseled you to continue to add the people in the tree, because you never know how you're going to connect. And if you don't connect, it's okay, because you're giving service to those on the other side. They're closer than they've ever been to having their work done. And it's highly likely that somebody else will connect into that tree and be able to do the work. So I'm going to show you a case in point. So here we've got, so there's more information here. There's information about the Rafdals. Let me show you this. So if I go back in here, see this Dorothy M. Rafdal? Actually, I want to go before I show you her. So keep that in mind, Dorothy. If I go back to Phyllis, and I found out that his name was Theodore Edward Rafdal. I found a newspaper article that listed where they were living, and it was in the same address where Bob and Hazel were living, in Maywood. So she was living there while he was getting his military chemical training in San Diego. And then she had this child, and then she was married. She married Leonard I've got about 1974 because I don't know for sure. But you can see this marriage to this Kufelt was in 1961, and I found proof of that. So she wasn't married very long to this sailor, and then she married another sailor. Then she wasn't married for a while, and then got married to the love of her life. So I added Theodore Edward, and when I did a newspaper search, I ended up finding out that he was getting, it mentioned his mom, Zelda. So let's click on Theodore. So I went in and I just added Zelda. So she was Zelda. And when I did her name, I didn't have a last name. I added that in, and I was able to connect into the tree. And you can see right here that these little dashed lines means I am not related. I can't do the work. But I wanted to connect him to his family. Even if they did get divorced, we don't know what happens on the other side. All of these are Heavenly Father's children, so we want to get them added. So when I did, I was able to connect him into the family. There was actually some duplicates. I merged them. And then I just thought, well, let's just click on these kids. So this one actually is showing, it shows available, but the only reason it shows green is it's the 110 year. So really, you can only request it if you have permission. But when I got up here to Dorothy, for some reason, I just thought, I'm going to click on her and I'm going to see how she's related. So I clicked view relationship, and she is actually related to me on my mom's side. So Phyllis is on my dad's side. And so Phyllis married this Rafdal. Well, his sister married, if I scroll in here, this Charles Everett Gibson, who is connected to me 12 generations back, but still is connected. So now I have the ability to do the work for Dorothy in 7 years. Same with Charles. It's a while. So, but I thought, well, let's look at the tree. Watch what happens. If I go to Dorothy and I view the tree, this was amazing because somebody else has been working on this tree. Let me share the landscape. So here's what I was trying to show you before. This is the landscape view. Look at all these green temples. So on this side, these are all shared. If I didn't have names to do, I could help somebody else out because they've shared them with the temple. I could click on it and reserve it. I have 120 days to do it. But look on this side. Remember, I'm related to Charles Everett Gibson. He's a 12th cousin. Look, there's a green temple here for the 11th cousin. If I click on it, I can't do Charles, and I can't do Patricia. Oops, let me go back one more. Sorry. Actually, somebody has just recently reserved this. So you can see that there's this one, and maybe I accidentally did. This one's been shared with the temple, so I may have reserved this one already. Let's see. So let's go back one more generation, and there's another green. And look at this. I can reserve these. This one, it's already shared with the temple, so I'm not going to take it. I'm going to uncheck it because it's already in queue. I'm going to reserve these and share them with the temple. It's going to give people in parts of the world or in my state or ward who do not have names, it will give them names to take to the temple, because when they click ordinances ready, it will search first through their reservations, their family's reservations, family groups. Then it will go to the ward. Then it will go to the stake. Then it goes to the area, and then the rest of the world. So here we've got these. Look at all these names. Because I kept working on the Raft dolls, I was working on my direct relation, her first husband, who his family has no relation, but the sister did marry one of my cousins. So do you see how important that is? So now I'm going to request, and I'm not just going to let it sit in my temple file. I am immediately going to go to my temple, go to my reservations, and I'll give you, this is another little tip for you. So what we can do, see right now, this one says it was reserved in March 24. It's been printed. Not sure where it is. So that's something for me to find or share with the temple. But I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to do it, click on ascending, and now it will show me if I do, let's see, not date expires, but date reserved. So I'm going to do date reserved. So since I changed it, if I click ascending, it's going to go to 2021. If I go to this, click on this again, then I get 2026 right now when I just did this. So now I can come and I'm going to individually check. You could check this entire box, but if you have ones down here that you want to do, it's going to share them with the temple. So I'm just going to click individually the ones that I just reserved. And let's say I wanted to do the initiatory for Margaret, then I could uncheck that box. But right now, I just want to get them in the queue. I want to get them in line. There's some more Gibsons. There's another Gibson. Got quite a few Gibsons. Look how fun this is that I was able to do this. And now we're into a different family that I don't remember. This was a few days ago. I put them in and I ran out of time and I didn't have a chance to share them. So we'll just add those few there. And then I'll worry about the rest later for sake of time. Then I click share and I say share with temple. If you have a family group, you can share with the group. Or if you have a family member that's going to the temple, you can click share with the individual and either text it or email that to them. It will go to them for 14 days and then it will revert back to you if they don't accept it. But once you've sent it, it's locked in and for those 14 days if they don't accept. So I'm going to say share with temple. And I've got this many ordinances, and I say share with temple. And sometimes it takes a second for it to do that. So I hope that this has been good for you to see how acting on a prompting can lead you to finding your family that are ready and waiting. And I know they are. And we do all in our power, and then we leave the rest in the hands of God. I do want to show you one more thing. So I've got some more that I will share. You can see that I have more than I want to in my temple file, but I'm working on getting those shared. If you come here to Family Tree and you go to My Contributions, this will help you see what you've done. So these are changes that you've made. So I've attached a source. I changed a parent-child relationship. I can go to my stats, and it shows all of my contributions over the years. So you can see when I had not very many and then a lot. So you can see it's gone up and down. And this was a period of time when we moved. So I can see why that happened. So I can see how many sources I've attached. I can see how many memories I've attached. So I did a lot in 2017. How many people I've added. So I had a really big year in 2024, not so much as last year. And then I'm off to a little bit slower start here this year, but I've had a lot going on. So it's kind of fun to come in here, and I have a really good friend, Lois, and she's 90 years old. And last year, she was almost to this number. She added almost 1,200 people from Sweden into the family tree. So if you needed a little inspiration, I hope Lois's example can inspire you. And let me stop sharing here. So hopefully, oh, I didn't even realize I had that light shining in my head. But I'm glad that you have come along with me for this little journey, and I'll update you in the future about whether I was able to be able to do that work, if I was able to get permission. We just always have to remember that everybody has their agency, and we just do our best and do our part. So my challenge to you is to get on FamilySearch and use those buttons on the right-hand side. Click on Ancestry, click on My Heritage, and see what other records you can find. Try doing a Google search of a relative to see if you can find more information. Find an obituary or some pictures, that kind of thing. And we will see you next week.